RVers are using their RVs far more than they did 4 years ago. I'm Jason Epperson, and this is RV Miles. Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're doing one of my favorite things. We're diving into data, specifically data about who owns RVs and how the mix of RV owners has changed over the years. The RV Industry Association's marketing arm, called Go RVing, does this big RV ownership study every now and then. It's not on a regular basis, it's about every 4 to 6 years. They just released the 2025 data, and the last time they did it was back in March of 2021, which was really still around the beginning of the COVID RV boom. People had been buying lots of RVs for like 10 months or so, but RV manufacturing hadn't increased dramatically yet because there were all these parts and materials and labor shortages. Remember all that stuff? So this survey that just came out for 2025 is really our first look at the pandemic's effect on RV ownership. And there are some bombshells in here. The top headlines would be that RV owners are using their RVs a lot more than they did 4 years ago. There are fewer RVers than we previously thought, and the slice of RVers that are full-time has dramatically increased in the last 4 years. We'll dive into all of that in a sec, but first, this video is sponsored by Wholesale Warranties. Whether you're chasing sunsets on the open road or settling into your favorite campground, unexpected repairs can put a major wrench in your travel plans, and that's where Wholesale Warranties comes in, your travel companion for peace of mind in 2025 and beyond. Unfortunately, it isn't a matter of if your RV will break down, it's when. A single repair can cost thousands, but an extended warranty through our friends at Wholesale Warranties means your travel budget is covered. With over 2 decades of experience in the RV community, Wholesale Warranties knows RVers. They offer top-rated RV warranty coverage tailored to you and your RV, and they back it up with 5-star customer service, and you have no waiting period. You have the flexibility to use any repair tech in the US or Canada, including mobile technicians. Tire and wheel protection is included with every plan and more. Make 2025 your best year of travel yet. Visit wholesalewarranties.com to get your free, no obligation quote today and hit the road with peace of mind tomorrow. Okay, so this owner demographic survey is kind of a big deal. They spend a lot of money on doing this data, and this is going to be the public version that they put out. So this is a survey done by the RV industry. So they do decide which information they're going to put out, and the rest of the information they're keeping, secretive, or they're sharing with their members. But in the public version, we have some really interesting stuff here. But of course, take it with a grain of salt. Numbers can be shown in various different ways to show different things. But there are some positive and negative things in this report. This report is a big deal because of the way they do it. We see lots of surveys out there on camping and RVing and the folks that are doing it. And usually it's done by an independent research firm, and they contact 1,500 households. And of those, only a certain number of them are going to be RVers, right? For this survey, they talked to 3,000 RV owning households for 20 minutes each. And that's really a good sample number to get an idea of what's going on in the entirety of the RV space. So the big thing that I noticed right off the bat in this survey that many people I think would notice right off the bat is that there are 8.1 RV owning households in the country. And so that's not people, that's households. And that represents 6.7% of vehicle owning households. That number seems a lot lower than it was in 2021 when we had 11.2 million RV owning households, which was about 10% of the country's vehicle owning households. However, there's a big asterisk there. In 2025, there was a significant change in survey methodology to more accurately account for the number of RV owning households. And this number better aligns with the other RV industry data, such as shipments and registrations. That makes a lot of sense to me because when I've seen these surveys in the past, I've been like, well, gosh, that seems like more than are being sold. And now they've corrected for that, and it seems to make sense. What we don't get out of this then is what 2021 should have been under this new methodology. Are there more RV owning households now than there were back then? I have no idea because they don't tell us. They do tell us that 8.4 million households are former RV owners. So there are more former RV owning households than there are current RV owning households. 16.9 million households intend on buying an RV at some point, and 88.2 million households don't intend on RVing at all. They have no interest. The second really big piece of data I got out of this is that people are using their RVs significantly more. Back in 2021, when this survey was done, the median household used their RV for 20 days out of a year. So that's the median, though. So a lot of people are using their RVs far less than 20 days out of the year, or were back in 2021. Now in 2025, households are using their RVs for 30 days out of the year on a median. So people are using their RVs 50% more than they were 4 years ago. That explains a lot. You can imagine that on the aggregate, that makes both the campground reservation problem, all these campgrounds that are totally booked up, and the RV service problem worse, because more people are using their RVs for more, meaning they're going to have more problems with those RVs. They're putting more wear and tear on them. So there is going to be more need for use of RV service. And that's part of a big problem that we've been seeing, of course, over the course of the last 5 years or so, is that people are having a huge struggle getting primarily warranty work done, but really any RV service. They're waiting 60 days or more to get a problem solved at a dealership. Now, they also have some data about how many trips people take and how far they go. So 9 trips per year is the median, and 250 miles traveled per trip is the median. So a lot of people aren't actually traveling that far. And that bears out a lot of what we see in the industry as to how they decide what sorts of products to put out. Because this type of survey is done for the folks in the industry to make decisions about what kind of products to build and how they sell them and all that sort of stuff. So when we power users here are all thinking, well, all trailers should have anti-lock brakes. They should all have independent suspension. They should all have 3-inch sidewalls, all this sort of stuff. When people are only traveling 250 miles at a time, when they only have 2 travel days per camping trip out and back, it doesn't really make sense for them to spend all that money on something like that. The industry will build what we want if we're willing to pay for it. And a lot of people just aren't willing to pay for that. They would rather pick the floor plan they want and buy the cheapest version of that. Part of our mission here is to teach people that that's not the best way to buy an RV, but unfortunately, that's the reality of what people do. So back before they did this survey in 2021, the RV industry decided it's probably not the best idea, though, to sort of look at the aggregate of people as a whole and pigeonhole them all into one area. So they thought, well, let's take the RV owners out there and split them up into several different cohorts of owners and get some feedback on the types of people that RV in those different categories. Because obviously some people are only doing their little weekend trips. Some people are snowbirds. Some people are full-time, all that sort of stuff. So what they've done is split us all into these categories. Casual campers who only use their RV for a few weekends a year or in the warmer months, family campers who are mostly traveling with a family, escapists who are people who like to travel for 2 months or more out of the year, avid RVers who are traveling for 3 months or more out of the year, long haulers, which they used to call full-timers. We'll get into why in a second. And snowbirds, of course, people who are going for a season somewhere, and then adventure seekers. And those are people who bought an RV to go rock climbing or skiing or side-by-side riding, all that sort of stuff. So I'm not going to get deep into all these different things because it's a lot of information and that will just be a very long, boring video. But if you want to look at this, it's a really nice PDF sort of PowerPoint presentation that's got lots of great charts and stuff in it. And I will put a link to it in the description for this video so that you can check it out for yourself. But just real quick overview until I get to the real big one that I think people are really interested in, the number of full-time RVers there are out there. Casual campers are 31% of people. These are people that use their RV for 20 days on the median. These people use their RVs for 50% of their vacation time. 70% of them own a conventional travel trailer, 11% fifth wheel, 6% Class C motorhome. It's a significantly higher number of these people that own travel trailers, and that makes sense because they're not using them very often, so they're buying the least expensive RVs out there. So that's about 31% of RVers. Another 30% is family campers. So this is people that most often grow up with an RV and they decide they want to bring their kids along and do some RVing trips, and they also use their RVs on the median for 20 days out of the year. Again, 50% of their vacation time is an RV. So between those two categories, that's 61% of RVers. So 61% of RVers are using their RVs 20 days or less out of the year still, even though we're all using RVs a bit more than we did 4 years ago. But let's get into some of the niche categories. So escapists, this is 20% of RVers. These are people that use their RVs for 2 months or more. 50 days is the median. 64% of their vacation time is in their RV. And then more niche than them is the average RVers, people that use their RVs for really 3 months out of the year. 94 days is the median, and that's 8% of RVers. But let's get to the long haulers. So the long haulers are what the industry called full-timers last time around when they did this survey. And I think they changed the name of it for a couple reasons. Full-time RVing is something that the RV industry has a tenuous relationship with because they don't want the government to see RVing as housing. That gets them into situations where there's going to be a lot more code requirements and a lot more government supervision like there is with the manufactured housing industry. There have been a few times where Abby and I have been approached about being a part of an article that the RV Industry Association or Go RVing was collaborating on with somebody like USA Today or something like that. And when they realized that we were full-time RVers, we got pulled out of that because the RV Industry Association is not trying to promote full-time RVing, even though there are some RV manufacturers will say full-time friendly or full-time friendly warranty on their RV. The industry association as a whole do not like to really promote full-time RVing. So long haulers are people, though, that use their RVs 365 days out of the year. So they're using their RV every day. So it's essentially full-timers, but there are a few people that aren't full-timers that use their RV 365. So I'm thinking about people that park their RV in their backyard and use it as a home office. I'm thinking about people with a disability, people who use a wheelchair and take their RV with them wherever they go. They're in a Class B camper van as their primary vehicle because they can have the motorized lift, because they can take an accessible bathroom with them wherever they go, all that sort of stuff. It's a very common thing to see people that are using a wheelchair have a Class B camper van as their primary vehicle. And then there are other people that just own a small RV as their second family vehicle, and it gets used quite often just for grocery runs and taking the kids to baseball games and stuff like that. There is a segment of people that do that. Now, 75% of long haulers say they bought their RV for full timing. That doesn't mean that 75% of these people are full timers. It's probably more because some of them bought their RV before they decided to go full time. But we know at least 75% of long haulers are full-time RVers. What's really interesting about this category this time around in this survey, 6% of RVers are long haulers. 2021, it was 1.5%. So the number of full-time RVers in the last 4 years has increased fourfold. Now, I will say 4 years ago, that 1.5%, that was a lot fewer RVers that were full-time than a lot of people thought there were. There was this number that was thrown out quite a bit before then, that somewhere between 1 and 2 million people were full-time RVers. And when that survey came out in 2021, the stats didn't really bear that. It was somewhere significantly lower than 500,000 people. Well, now when you look at 6% of RV owning households, 6% of 8.1 million households, that's 486,000 households that are full-time RVers or are these long haulers. So somewhere between 75% and 100% of these people are full-time RVers. 486,000 households. 66% of those people travel with a spouse, and that's actually lower than most other categories, surprisingly to me. Some of those people are going to travel with a significant other that is not a spouse. But if you say that 66% of these households are traveling with 2 people in the RV, that would mean that 806,760 adults are full-time RVers. Some people are going to have kids. There's no way to get exact stats on this sort of thing, but I think it's safe to say that somewhere between 750,000 and 1 million people are full-time RVers. Now, does full-time RVing mean people that sit at the same campground all the time, or does it mean people that travel? That's for you to decide, but they do divide that up in here. 61% of this long hauler category travel with their RV to different locations. So meaning 39% of this category are people that sit in the same campground. They essentially live in one campground full time. So I think that's an interesting distinction. So the number of people that are traveling full time is going to be somewhere between probably 500,000 and 750,000 people. And that sort of fits with me, because if you look at the number of campsites out there, there's around 15,000 private campgrounds in the country. And if each of them has 100 sites, and I think that's quite high, they probably have less than 100 sites on the median, but that would be 1.5 million campsites out there. If there are 1.5 million campsites out there, non-government campsites, right? We're talking about private parks, and the government sites is probably going to be at least double that. But I would say it's hard to tell me that there's between 1 and 2 million full-time RVers if that's the number of campsites that are available in this country. So then the other two categories that we haven't talked about, snowbirds is 4% of people. Believe it or not, snowbirds are less than full-time RVers. I thought that was really interesting. And then adventure seekers is 1%. So again, these are people that are sort of outdoor sports enthusiasts in general, and they like to do things like rock climbing, swimming, and surfing, and all that sort of stuff. Couple other things I want to point out here. We've often thought of RVing as something that's for retirees. That is definitely no longer the case. It wasn't back in 2021 either, but it is continuing to skew younger. 61% of RVers are 18 to 54 years old. 39% are 55 plus. The average annual income, 53% over 75K. 50% are employed full-time, 24% are retired, and of course, the other 26% are employed part-time. And 43% have children in the house. Let's talk about buying RVs for a minute. 45% paid cash. The rest used financing, of course. 83% are likely to purchase the same brand for their next RV. So 83% of people are happy with the brand they chose. Again, take all this with a grain of salt, but I think people are significantly more happy with their RVs than some of the social media discourse would point out. 38% said the reason they would stick with the brand they have is that they had a good experience with the brand. 32% would say that it's because of the strong quality. So that means 70% said good experience with the brand and strong quality were their top two reasons. 24% said that the brand provides the desired features they want. Only 17% said they're unlikely to purchase the same brand for their next RV. Now, over the years, there's often been this number thrown out that about 60% of people travel with pets. That doesn't quite bear out in this data. It's only about 40% of people that travel with a pet, mostly dogs. And that sort of lines up with what I've seen in the campgrounds. I don't think one person's two eyes are the best way to look at data, but I do think that it makes sense that not 60% of people are traveling with dogs. Hobbies that people have, this is something that has been very consistent over the years, and I'm really surprised by it. 47% of people say that one of the hobbies that they participate in when they go RVing is fishing. 47%. Does that number seem high to you? It comes up time and time again in these surveys, and it seems really solidly consistent in the high 40s. I haven't noticed that. I'm not a fisherman, so maybe that's because I haven't participated in those circles, but 47% go fishing, 44% hiking, 37% visiting local attractions, 33% bring a bicycle with them, 16% a kayak, 15% ATV or a four-wheeler. So I think big picture, sort of those habits and lifestyle factors, along with the amount of time that people use their RVs and the distance traveled, I think that paints a really clear picture of the fact that the majority of RVers are not big travelers. They're not big in visiting towns and all that sort of stuff. they're taking their RV to their, local state park or in their somewhere within the vicinity of 250 miles to a campground. And the purpose of RVing to them is going to the campground and hanging out of the campground. I think that is what I'm gathering out of this. So overall, there's again a lot more data in here, a lot of interesting things to look at. If you'd like to look through it, I'd be happy to have you do so. Again, it's in the description. You can find the link for it down there. And I'd love to hear some of the things that you thought were interesting. And do you think what you see out in the world bears these stats? Do you think more people are RVing, or do you think fewer people are RVing? I'd love to know. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. Hit the like button if you got something out of this video. Subscribe if you want more like it. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.